Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys football. Top 5 offenses in college football heading into the 2024 season. Dill, you have your top 5. I have my top 5. A little bit of descent in the ranks here. Gonna get into it. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys. It has been a blast taking deep dives into all of these programs over the last couple of months. The amount of support you guys have shown the fellas truly does mean a lot. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. But much more importantly, let it fly in the comment section. We did our top 5 defenses last week. I took a lot of heat for leaving Notre Dame out of the top 5. That's the best part about doing this. Best part about college football. Let us know in the comment section how you guys are feeling, whether you agree, whether you disagree with the fellas. Dill, I'm going to give you the T-box here. Your number 1 offense in college football heading into 2024, who you got?
Going with the Georgia Bulldogs. And I know like you kind of built their reputation on defense and maybe not playing the greatest offense or whatever you have, but as of late, they've been coming on. And frankly, I think when you look at the quarterback landscape, it's really hard to argue that anyone coming back is better than Carson Beck. I thought he really played good and like gave him something different than what they have in terms of how well he was able to push the ball down the field. And everything else, you just don't have questions. I mean, the offensive lines are turning most of it, aside from Van Pran, and they looked really good last year. Always going to be good at running back. Add a guy like Trevor Etienne, huge. And I like that they added some wide receivers who I think can get down the field a little bit better in Colby Young and London Humphreys. So I just think it's a really complete offense. And when you have the best quarterback coming back and you have a lot of talent around it, that's a really good recipe.
Yeah, I have Georgia number 3. And I for a lot of the same reasons that you have, I guess I have them number 3 because you do have to replace one of the best players in all of college football coming into 2024 in Brock Bowers. But Dill, you look at the boxes that you want to see checked for top offenses heading into a college football season. Obviously, number 1 is the quarterback. I've been extremely vocal that if you asked me to head into this 2024 season, I got to pick any quarterback across the country. I'm not sure how many quarterbacks there are I'm taking over Carson Beck. Then you combine that with just an elite offensive line. I think they did a really good job, like you said, with the wide receiver position. Good offensive line, very good quarterback play. It's going to be a balanced offense that can run the football, push the ball down the field. Not many question marks you have about this Georgia offense heading into 2024. Number 1 for you, number 3 for me. Dill, my number 1 offense heading into 2024. And I've been asking myself, am I buying in too much to Dan Lanning in the Oregon Ducks? A lot of people I respect. I'm H, a longtime listener, telling me I'm too high on Oregon. And I kind of went back and thought about it. And I don't think I am. I am extremely high on this Oregon Ducks program heading into 2024. Now, you look at this Oregon offense, it starts with Dylan Gabriel. Now, there will be a lot of people who say, well, I'm not high on this Oregon offense because Dylan Gabriel is not an NFL caliber quarterback. And although I agree, Dylan Gabriel's probably not going to be picked in the top 100 picks in the NFL draft, Dylan Gabriel fits this Oregon offense like an absolute glove. Go back to 2023. Bo Nix's average depth of target was 6.8 yards down the field. That was one of the lowest in the FBS. This Oregon offense is predicated on getting the football out quick to their guys in space, and I think Dylan Gabriel is a perfect fit to run that offense. Then you take a look at what's around him. 12 months ago, we were talking about Evan Stewart being the second best wide receiver in the country behind Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't think much has changed. Evan Stewart just dealt with some bad quarterback play in 2023. Also was dealing with some injuries. You have guys like Tez Johnson, Trayshawn Holden. This is an Oregon team that has, in my mind, a top 10 unit on the offensive line. They were top 5 in the country in yards per carry last year. You take Dylan Gabriel being, in my mind, a perfect fit in this Oregon offense, a balanced attack that's going to be able to run the football and push the ball down the field. Give me this Oregon offense as the number 1 offense in the country here.
I mean, I don't hate it. And a lot of it, frankly, has to do with like how much better I think they've gotten up front than people kind of give them credit for. You think back to Dan Lanning's first game against Georgia where they kind of got steamrolled a little bit, and there's a different level of guy on the line of scrimmage. And I mean, you look at no doubt about their skill positions. We know they're really good, but you look bringing back probably arguably one of the better tackle rooms in all the country. I think Johnny Cornelius, stunned he's back at college. Josh Connerly really came on late as a younger player, but I just think they're really dominant up front. And again, Will Stein in that offense with all those weapons, they were really good last year. I think they upgraded a little bit with Evan Stewart coming in. I mean, I love what they have going.
Yeah, is that an argument that I think is very feasible to make? Because, okay, you lose Troy Franklin, who's probably going to be a top 50 pick in the NFL draft. You kind of replace him with Evan Stewart. No knock on Troy Franklin. I think Evan Stewart's a better wide receiver than Troy Franklin and does a lot of the same things that Troy Franklin did for this Oregon offense. That's one of the reasons I
think Evan Stewart can do a little bit more with the ball in his hands and some of those like shorter intermediate plays. Because again, Troy Franklin, as good as it gets taking the top off the defenses, I think Evan Stewart can do that again. I'm not sure we've gotten to see all of what Evan Stewart can do because of what you said, playing in under just an ineffective offense at A&M that really wasn't conducive to his skill set. But I think he's super versatile. I think he's as good as it gets when he's got the ball in his hands and making plays. I love what they have there. I think Tez Johnson, Holden are really good. I'm all aboard the Oregon hype train for that offense.
And it's you look at this Oregon offense last year. I mean, it was a top 3 offense in the country. How well they could run the football, how well they could throw. And I feel like at the biggest spotlights, they probably didn't play their best football, the 2 games against Washington. But you watch that Oregon team consistently with how many ways they can attack defenses, whether it's pushing the ball down the field, whether it's the quick game, whether it's the rushing attack. It's just an offense that when firing on all cylinders, in my mind, is just so difficult to defend. Dill, Oregon was your number 2 offense in the country. So we're going to go to your number 3 offense in the country. Who you got?
I got the Ole Miss Rebels. And again, I don't think that's a surprising one. I mean, that's a team that, as good as it gets, head coach and Lane Kiffin in terms of calling an offense and dialing it up, but also just what they did in the portal. I think adding a couple more bodies on that offensive line, big position I thought they needed to address a little bit. I think they took care of that. And then you look, I mean, their offensive skill players are Trey Harris being one of the better players in the country, bringing in Juice Wells. I mean, this is a loaded group on offense. And I'm not that worried about what they have at running back because I thought Ulysses Bentley was great last year. I think Logan Diggs kind of can give you some of that more physical running. And from what everyone's saying about Kedrick Riscano, you might need to look out for him too.
And some buzz around Henry Parrish coming back to Ole Miss as well, heading into 2024. Dill, Ole Miss, my number 2 offense. So it sounds like our top 3 offenses are all the same, just in a little bit of a different order. A lot of the same reasons you have when you look at Ole Miss. Jackson Dart going into year 3 with this Lane Kiffin offense, he by far has the best supporting cast around him. But my argument for Ole Miss kind of taking that next step for this offense is what they did on the offensive line. I think this is probably the best Ole Miss offensive line you'd see as well. Diego Pound's coming in from UNC, one of the top tackles in the transfer portal. You add a ton of depth and healthy competition in that room. And then to kind of hammer home the wide receiver room, why I'm so high on this group, kind of same to why I'm so high on Oregon. This wide receiver room balances each other out so well. You have a guy in Trey Harris who not many wide receivers better working vertically down the field. You have a guy in Juice Wells who excels after the catch, pretty much just a juiced up running back after the catch. Jordan Watkins, a very sneaky good slot receiver who is best suited to be that wide receiver 3 operating in the slot. You're sprinkling guys like Deion Smith, second-year wide receiver Aiden Williams. I think it all comes down to this Ole Miss team has some of the best talent that you have in the country with one of the best quarterbacks you have in the country, and then one of the best offensive minds in the game in Lane Kiffin. You put all
they won't get overpowered up front because that was the one thing holding them back. I mean, you look when they played Georgia and Alabama, you could kind of tell that their offensive line didn't quite hold up to those 2 units, and it wasn't bad. It wasn't far off, but I do like the idea of bringing in a lot more depth, a lot more competition, and returning some, frankly, pretty good players. So I think you have a really well set up offensive line, and you've always known the skill guys can play. I think they're at as high of a level as we've seen at Ole Miss. It sets up. It'll be a really interesting year for the Rebels.
All right. So number 4 for me, I have Oregon, Ole Miss, Georgia. My number 4 offense, and I know you're going to push back on me a little bit. I'm going to go to the Ohio State Buckeyes, and I have a couple of reasons why. And it's really easy to be like, I doubt Will Howard leading this Ohio State offense in a Ryan Day offense. My argument would be Chip Kelly coming in. I think you're going to see a little bit more wrinkles to this Ohio State offense. But at the end of the day, for as much as people want to knock Will Howard, the completion percentage not being what it should be coming from Kansas State, not necessarily being the best quarterback, pushing the ball down the field. That Kansas State offense last year was top 10 in the country in points per game. You have Will Howard now coming to an Ohio State offense where, Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, the best running back duo we see in the country, and a wide receiver room that Emeka Buka going to get a lot of the hype as kind of that returning proven guy. Carnell Tate might be the best wide receiver on the team. And then true freshman Jeremiah Smith might even be better than Carnell Tate. You look at the amount of talent that is going to be surrounded by Will Howard, or Will Howard's going to be surrounded by, then you kind of add in Ryan Day and Chip Kelly kind of putting their brains together and designing this offense. The way I look at it, it's just too good of play callers with too much talent for this Ohio State offense to not be a top 5 unit in the country.
My concern is I don't know that, and it's not saying like OSU. They're obviously going to be a great offense. You can look at what they have at those skill positions, and you just know that. I still wonder what they're going to have up front. I thought they were a decent unit last year. I didn't think they were a great unit, and when they played really good defensive lines, they sometimes didn't hold up quite what you need to be up in that upper echelon of college football offenses. And it's really hard to play really great offense when your quarterback doesn't play really, really, really good. We haven't seen Will Howard play like great football in my mind in his college career. Good football for sure, but good football and like being top 5 offense football, I don't know that we've seen that again. You're starting to hear some other buzz about maybe some other guys working in at that quarterback spot for Ohio State, and we'll see. I just think when you don't know that you're going to have real dynamite guys at that quarterback position, and you look at some of these other schools that you kind of know will have really good quarterback play, it's hard to put them in there.
So to my pushback on the Will Howard, and I get it. I don't think Will Howard's a top 5 quarterback in the country heading into 2024. I don't even think many Ohio State fans would even argue that. But I look at Will Howard saying, you played pretty damn good football at Kansas State for the last couple of years. His best target to go to was a running back in Deuce Vaughn 2 years ago, and then Ben Sinnott last year. Ben Sinnott's a dog. I love Ben Sinnott, but you take a look at the running backs he's going to have in the backfield and then the pass catchers that he's going to be able to push the ball down the field to. I think you're going to see the best of Will Howard because the talent that he's going to be surrounded by is going to be significantly better. Kansas State, outside of Ben Sinnott, did not have a single player on that offense, a pass catcher, I should say, that's going to be playing in the NFL. Ohio State might have 6 or 7. And then you look at the offensive line. I think that's a very valid criticism. I don't think this is an elite offensive line, but Chip Kelly knows how to design a run game that isn't relying on a dominant offensive line because he's one of the best at scheming up run games. So if they can take a step on the offensive line, they return a lot of guys. They bring in Seth McLaughlin, who, again, minus the snapping troubles, a damn good center. I think this Ohio State offense is, I guess at the end of the day, kind of circling back to too much talent to not be a top 5 offense in the country. In my mind, I'll kick it to you for your number 4 offense here.
I got LSU, and I just think, aside from people maybe thinking, yeah, you got to replace Jaden Daniels, but we've seen enough from Garrett Nussmeier in my mind to think like he'll come right in and be fine. They are loaded at wide receiver. They're really good at running back with Caleb Jackson. I think he's going to have a huge year. In their offensive line, probably the best in the country. So I just think this is an ultra complete unit. They have a ton of star power. They have the offensive line you need to have. And again, if Garrett Nussmeier plays good, and I think he will, you go back to that Georgia game in 22, go back to the Wisconsin game last year, he comes in and he gives them really good work. I think this unit's going to be fine. I don't think they're going to take much of a step back. I think they're going to play really good football.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think a lot of college football fans across the country are going to say, all right, Heisman quarterback Jaden Daniels leaving. You lose guys like Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas. That's a lot of really, really good football players to lose. There's no doubt in my mind. Is there going to be a step back at the quarterback position? Yeah, maybe a little bit. You just saw Jaden Daniels really be special in 2023, but I think you said it right. We've seen enough from Garrett Nussmeier to kind of trust that he can come into this offense and take the reins. But what you said is kind of what I believe in. You're looking at one of, if not the best offensive line units in the country, combined with some wide receivers that, you read the spring practice notes, guys like Chris Hilton Jr., Kyron Lacey, then you add a guy like CJ Daniels, who definitely could have been an NFL draft pick had he wanted to. It's really easy to believe in this LSU team. You look at quarterback play, you're pretty damn confident in, but then you look at elite offensive line, elite pass catchers, really good running back room, or solid running back room. Hopefully they add some depth. You feel pretty good about this LSU team being a top 5 offense. I have them at number 5. So I guess you're last on the board here. You're number 5 offense in the country. Who we got?
Going with the Texas Longhorns. And I just think, again, a unit that is sneaky ultra complete. You look at the offensive line now that's been together for a long time. I mean, these guys have been going back to their freshman year, playing a lot of football. Kelvin Banks Jr., I should say, DJ Campbell. Like, these guys have played a lot of ball, gotten a lot better, really good, really physical. Wide receivers are really, really loaded. I mean, adding guys through the portal that they did, I think that's a really elite unit. And Quinn Ewers coming back, I just think this is a really good-looking unit. And again, if their running backs play good, and I think they will, CJ Baxter, there's some big shoes to fill for sure with Jonathan Brooks, but I think they're cut out for it. I thought Baxter played really well. I think this is a really complete offense too, and I just don't see the holes like you talk about, like some other teams, like maybe in Ohio State. I mean, there are some places you have questions, I suppose. Texas, I just think the way Quinn Ewers kind of stepped up last year, I don't think you have that many questions about this offense. And
for me, leaving them out of the top 5, it does have to do with Quinn Ewers has never played the football that I think I've wanted him to play. There's always just been some inconsistencies in his game. He's definitely one of the best quarterbacks in the country heading into 2024. Can he kind of finally put it together is the question. And then you have kind of a completely new wide receiver room that's loaded, right? You can take a look at what they have to replace. Isaiah Bond, thought to be one of the best wide receivers in the country. I'm really excited to see him in an offense that really wants to push the ball down the field. He was a little bit handicapped in terms of that Jalen Milroe offense last year. Matthew Golden, very sneaky wide receiver coming from Houston. Silas Bolden, we know what he has. True freshman Ryan Wingo, Jonte Cook. It's a loaded offense. And I think I leave him out of my top 5 because Quinn Ewers has just been inconsistent at times, but there's a certain argument. You almost made it change my mind and kind of putting Texas in the top 5. Let's get into just a brief few honorable mentions. I'll lead off and just say USC. When's the last time Lincoln Riley hasn't had like a top 10, top 5 offense in the country? It is extremely hard to doubt a USC offense with Lincoln Riley. I get you have to replace Caleb Williams. Miller Moss played phenomenal football in that bowl game. A wide receiver room that I think has the potential to be one of the best wide receiver rooms in the country with guys like Zachariah Branch, Deuce Robinson, Jacoby Lane, Mekhi Lemon. I think you have some question marks about some of the offensive line spots. If they can address that in the transfer portal, I guess it comes down to you don't sound smart a lot doubting Lincoln Riley on the offensive side of the football. So I do feel like they deserve an honorable mention. It's certainly an offense that has the potential to be a top 5 unit in the country.
Yeah, and what my probably right on the fringe of what I kind of have, I think Missouri is right there. And you just look again, a unit that I think people are like maybe think like, oh, they're kind of still getting there. They don't recruit the same way some of these other big schools or like let's say more established programs over the last 5 years have. But that's coming up. They use the portal really well. I mean, Luther Burden's as good as a wide receiver as anyone in the country, and him and Cook really play well together. And I think if they get good production out of a running back, and that's probably the one question I have coming into the year, is who's going to be that bell cow and replace what they had last year, and they played really good running back there. I think they'll be really good. I think Drinkwitz and his staff do a really good job calling an offense. That unit, it's really tight because I just think Luther Burden's like he's one of the best players in the country.
Coach Drink and Kirby Moore have it cooking, and we just had a conversation about Missouri on the recruiting trail. They're not finishing top 10 in the high school rankings, but when you kind of combine top 20 high school classes, which Coach Drink is doing at Missouri, and then top 15, top 10 transfer portal classes, you can build a damn good roster that way. That's what Missouri's been doing. And then you look at the checks, the boxes that you want to see checked. Really good offensive line play for Missouri. You bring in a guy like Caden Green. Very good quarterback play. And Brady Cook, he was phenomenal last year. Very good wide receiver room, headlined by Luther Burden. I mean, those are the important boxes that you want to see checked. Missouri does check those boxes. I'm going to throw one more offense out that I really wanted to include in my top 5. Just couldn't get there. Arizona. I mean, I get you have to replace Jed Fish, but you look at, and I always look at, all right, what are some of the better quarterback wide receiver batteries that we see in the country? A lot of the offenses that we just named have elite quarterback wide receiver batteries. I don't know if there's a better one than Fafita and T-Mac for Arizona. And you look at that passing attack last year, very sneaky, very, very good. Not many people paid attention to Arizona early on in the season, started coming on strong. It's hard to bet against Noah Fafita and T-Mac as one of the better quarterback wide receiver duos in the country. And because of that, Dill, this offense, this Arizona team is going to be very fun to watch in 2024. Very deserving of an honorable mention there.
I mean, those two are just incredible in the chemistry they have and everything you kind of want to see. It's really hard to deal with an offense that has, again, what you kind of said, a battery like that. My last one I'm going to say is Miami. And I just think if Miami gets really good quarterback play, and I think Cam Ward might give it to him, elite offensive line, good young running back, a really good stable of wideouts, I think this offense can, again, I mean, when it was at its best last year, it was right there because you kind of go back to that Texas A&M game. That's about as smooth of an offense as we really got to see for the most part last year. They just weren't consistent enough at that quarterback spot. If Cam Ward stabilizes that a little bit and plays that like the way we've seen him play at Washington State, that Miami team's set up to be a very good offense.
That Miami fans know that's this team. Me and Miami, we're kind of joined at the. There's a couple teams that I'm kind of putting my flag in the ground. Oregon being one of them, Miami in the ACC certainly being another one. I like it. Honestly, a couple offenses we left off the board. Let us have it in the comments section. Again, best part of college football, the discourse that's going on. Let us have it. Call us. Though I think Notre Dame fan, when we left them out, called us jokers. Let us have it in the comments section. We'll take it. We'll chop it up with you guys. Appreciate y'all rocking with the fellas again. Can't thank you guys enough, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.